Hello, and Happy New Year if you're watching this in January. Welcome to my wrap-up of the writing and drawing challenge that I did in December. Before I get into the wrap-up, I'll share one last update. Today I went through my Q&A document where I'd highlighted lines that would be the basis for new scenes, and I kind of separated them into their own list so that I could count them, decide on their order, and basically make a couple of passes through setting each of them up. So I ended up with a document like the one on the right where I basically listed the new scenes. The document on the left is my Q&A document, and I've basically redacted everything. And then I pulled out scenes that I'd highlighted in orange and just gave them a summary. And so I ended up with 40 scenes in all, of which 29 are new. And I also ended up with a list of elements that I needed to add to existing scenes, breadcrumbs that I needed to work in somewhere, though I'm not sure where yet. So lots of material that I've summarized into a short list, though I do intend to refer back to the Q&A document for more detail when I need it. So here I'm drawing another setting for my novel, and this time it's a storeroom of some kind. Reflecting on the past month, I thought I'd share some observations and things I've learned from this experience. The first point is the importance of flexibility. I think I had the right amount of flexibility when defining this challenge for myself. I basically gave myself a choice of what to do each day. I could choose between writing, drawing, and preparing to write, mashing up Inktober, Preptober, and NaNoWriMo into December, which is why this challenge has that unpronounceable name. And I found it useful to have some options and be able to switch between tasks depending on how much time I had, what I was in the mood for, what phase the project was in terms of what it needed next. I tracked my writing in the sprint tracker I showed earlier, and in order to meet the conditions of the challenge, I just had to write at all. So even if I wrote for 5 minutes, it counted. And that was pretty much all I needed to maintain consistency. I typically wrote more than that because I was having fun. The second observation was that it was helpful for me to measure my progress in streaks. So I did fall off the consistency train a couple of times, and I basically restarted my streak counter. I got the idea from Wordle, because that's how it displays the statistics. And so by tracking my streaks, I felt incentivized to keep it going, even after I'd fallen off. And so I ended up writing or drawing every day this month except for 2, and my longest streak was 18 days. And the interesting thing was, even on the days that I drew, I ended up also writing, because I could really feel the momentum starting to build, and so I was excited to push my draft forward, even just a tiny bit. And often writing was the easier choice because I could do it in about 5 minutes if I wanted, and drawing a picture typically took an hour or more. So in that way, the incentives kind of lined up because writing was the more important task, and the drawing was mostly to help visualize scenes in my writing. So if I ended up writing more, that was probably all for the best. So my next observation was that the writing went through 3 phases. The first phase was just reading my old draft, and then I started pulling pieces out to make an outline. And once I'd done that, I went through a couple of passes of questions and answers about each plot point. So that evolution just kind of happened naturally. At every point, I just asked myself, what needed to happen, what I needed to do to get more clarity and get closer to being able to draft, and I ended up kind of following that progression. And the nice thing about having, this minimal level of consistency is that I ended up finding answers to my questions just between writing sessions. So I'd pose a question to myself one day and I'd have the answer the next, because I guess my subconscious was plugging away at it without me knowing. So that's always nice when I find that my brain has results for me. And my last observation is kind of looking at the before and after of my novel. At the start of the month, I'd been feeling stuck for a while, and I hadn't read my draft. And now, at the end, with just a little bit of effort and just a little bit of consistency, I feel like I have a bit of momentum, a clear plan going forward, and I think most importantly, a bunch of confidence that I didn't have before. So for that reason, I'm really glad I did this. I'm nowhere near as tired as I have been after NaNoWriMo, the couple of times I attempted it and didn't win, obviously. Whereas this time, I managed to do what I set out to do. I'm feeling quite energized at the end of it, and I have some progress, which I think is sustainable. I'm going to try and keep this going. I guess if you're considering devising a challenge for yourself, I would definitely encourage doing it. I think it's a great idea. And I'd also encourage kind of setting the bar low. I think there's a lot to be gained from just consistency without going after crazy word counts, without setting, enormous challenges that will tire you out. I guess what I'm saying is that doing something easy can actually be beneficial, believe it or not. So I hope you try it and that you find it useful. And hopefully you enjoyed watching me draw this storeroom. I think it came out very cool and damp looking, which is what I was hoping for. I figured I'd conclude with a quick slideshow of all the drawings I made as a part of this challenge. And thanks for following along. I'll be back eventually with something, TBD, but I will be back at some point with novel updates. Alright then, bye!